Welcome back to another Kray video. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any videos. And for people really into the Krays, join our private Facebook group, Krays Crime Lords of London, where you will find stuff probably unavailable anywhere else. We're an established group with a large membership, and best of all, we're friendly. The link is in the YouTube description section.
Welcome back. We continue my story of my time with the Krays. They were crazy days. My name is Albert Donoghue. I was chief growler and rent collector for Ronnie and Reggie right up to 1968, when we were all arrested by Nipper Reid and his Scotland Yard team. I'd been on one visit to Dartmoor to see Big Frank Mitchell. I didn't know the guy, and I didn't have anything to say to him, but I sat there alongside Ronnie Kray as he promised that the twins would get Frank out. It was the least they could do for an old friend who felt the system wouldn't be letting him out for a long time, if ever. Poor Frank had been in the zoo since he was 17. He was now 37, 4 years older than the twins, who had both first met him in Wandsworth, though at different times around 1960. Frank had a long record for violent crime, especially for violence against prison officers. He was mentally subnormal, and he'd been deemed insane. He'd been to Rampton, he'd been to Broadmoor, he'd been everywhere. You name it, he'd been locked up in it. He'd had the birch, the cat, the whole lot. Finally, he had broken out of Broadmoor, broken into a house and terrorized an old couple by threatening to kill them with an axe. This was how he earned that terrifying nickname, the Mad Axeman. Soon, he was recaptured and sentenced to life. That decision always struck me as lunatic in itself. Here is a guy who's been locked up in Broadmoor because he's criminally insane. He breaks out and commits a criminally insane act. But when he's convicted, the judge decides he was sane after all and packs him off to an ordinary jail. Now tell me who's mad. By 1966, Frank had been in Dartmoor for 9 years, which was about the stretch normally served for a life sentence. So what he wanted was a guaranteed date for his release. When you've been in the nick as long as Frank, a date is something special. He had built up a special relationship with the governor of Dartmoor, who had made him a kind of promise, a verbal commitment. According to Frank, the governor had said he would urge the Home Office to give him a date. Whether it was immediate or a couple of years ahead didn't really matter. All Frank wanted was a date to focus his mind on. But months went by. Nothing was heard back from the Home Office, and so the governor had nothing to tell Frank. So Frank is raging because now he feels the governor's promise isn't worth the paper it isn't written on. Then in flies the good fairy, Ronald Kray. Our Ronnie now makes his own promise to Frank along these lines. Okay, we'll get you out, but you've got to stay out for 6 months. During this time, you write to a few top people. We'll give you their names so they can get public opinion rolling on your side and bring pressure on the authorities to guarantee you a release date. The idea behind the 6-month period was that if Mitchell could stay out that long without committing violence or any other crimes, then he could morally force the Home Office into giving him his date. Well, I'd never heard of anyone escaping from a British jail, giving himself up, and then coming out sooner than if he had never escaped. Escaping is a crime in itself, which means you always get time added on, not deducted. So when I heard that Ron had fed Mitchell this story, I knew it didn't add up. Anyway, who was this R. Kray Esquire? to make promises on behalf of the authorities that he couldn't fulfill. Not even the Home Secretary could get away with this kind of deal, so how could an East End hoodlum? Yet, ludicrous as it sounds, that was the deal the twins had persuaded Mitchell to believe. He didn't think it was ludicrous because to him, Ronnie was God. To us in the firm, Ronnie wasn't God. He was a crazy man who thought he was God. We also knew he had a habit of changing his mind and forgetting his promises. We were usually relieved he'd forgotten them, especially when it meant we didn't have to go out and kill somebody on his dreaded imaginary death list. So, when we heard this guff about springing Big Frank, we all thought it was just talk. None of us believed it would ever happen. Lo and behold, I went around the house one day, and the twins were seriously discussing it. Then they announced we were really going to pick Mitchell up. It wasn't going to be a great escape, no daring do drop over high prison walls, because most days Big Frank was let out of the prison as a most trusted member of an outside party working on a council rubbish tip. Even better, to keep him quiet, the screw would allow him to go off and feed the wild ponies with bread that he had saved up in the prison. He'd walk miles from the other prisoners, but he'd always show up again. So even if he was half an hour late, the screw would not think of raising the alarm. On escape day, he would be picked up by car within that half hour and whisked off to Crayland. We had to get a move on because it was coming up to December, when the outside working parties would soon be suspended for the rest of the winter, and Frank would be brought back inside. But for a few more days, we were all right. 2 of our guys went down on a final visit to make precise arrangements with Frank about the time and place for the pickup. As he had roamed all over Dartmoor and knew it so well, he was able to give them the perfect spot. The pickup itself was given to me because I hadn't visited Frank for months, so I was unlikely to be identified. The driver would be a completely strange face, Mad Teddy Smith, who had never been down at all. So early on Monday, 12th of December, me and Teddy headed off to Devon in a grey Humber, which Billy Exley had hired. We found the pickup point with no difficulty. It was a phone box by a T-junction, close to the Elephant's Nest public house near Peter Tavy. We had to meet him there at midday, and at just 12:10, he came walking around the corner. He was all on his own, and he got straight in the car. He wasn't particularly excited or elated. He was just quiet and relieved, confused and surprised, because I don't think he believed this would ever really happen. These kind of people love to sit and talk and plan, but they still don't think the escape will ever take place. If you've been in prison as long as Mitchell had, you can no longer separate fantasy from reality. As we drove off, we couldn't help fearing the whistle would go up almost straight away, and there would be instant roadblocks on every route off the moor. But the screw in charge of the working party must have been scurrying all over the moor trying to find Frank before he dared report him missing, because he knew he would get into terrible trouble for allowing the mad Axeman to wander off on his own. So that would have been one delay in raising the alarm, and then the prison bosses would have squirmed with embarrassment and disbelief for a few minutes before they dared call the local police. Then the police would have taken some time to raise the manpower for the roadblocks before doing the widening cordon routine, first 5 miles, then 10. And all that time, we were driving on home. We brought along a change of clothing for Frank, an old suit, shirt, socks, shoes and a tie. We'd got them off Big Tommy Brown, the ex-fighter, who was just about the same size. Frank changed in the car, shedding all his Dartmoor gear, an old khaki anorak, blue jeans, gumboots, scarf, prison shirt and underclothes, and a beret. He also had a long homemade knife, which he'd brought along for self-defense. He didn't want to give this to me, but I said, "The whole reason you're out is so you do not get involved in any violence. Then you can write to various people, and they will work on your behalf to get you a release date. So the last thing you want is any tools on you. So let's get rid of them." Then we took the knife off him, and I told him that even without the knife, there was to be no violence. If we were stopped at a police roadblock, we would have to split up, and then he would be on his own. This was all true, and it made common sense, but I still had to kid to him. It was like talking to a naughty boy. Then he settled down. We put all his prison clothing into his anorak, tied the neck strings and the arms so that it formed a bundle, and stuck the knife in the middle. I then slung the lot over a hedge. Throughout the journey, Frank had been listening to a transistor radio he'd brought along, but nothing came up about his escape until we were already back in London. It was 4:30, and we were in Fulham when we heard the news that he'd been reported missing. While we were in Fulham, I phoned Reggie over at Valence Road. Using our usual simple code, I said, "That horse won," so he knew everything was all right. We took Frank to a place in Priscilla Road at Bow, where we were going to hide him for the time being. It was the home of Nobby Clark's parents. Nobby and Scotch Jack Dixon were waiting for us, but when we knocked on the door, out came Nobby, looking terrified. It turned out that this little rat had volunteered his mum and dad's flat so he could look big in Ronnie's eyes. But all the time, never thinking this would ever happen. So when he saw Frank with us, he said, "Ooh, you can't go in there. The old man's not well." Then he said, "It's been changed." We got a new address, and he gave me a piece of paper with a number in Barking Road written on it. So we had to head off to this gaff near Canning Town, where a little guy named Lenny Dunn lived on his own. We called him Lenny the Books because he had a bookstall on Whitechapel Waste near Bow Bridge. We got tied up in a bit of traffic. As we drove slowly past a particular turning, by way of conversation I said, "You know that one, Frank? That's Old Ford Road." I shouldn't have done that because his parents lived there. So naturally he wanted to see them, but we had to keep him with us. He was getting excited, but we quietened him down. Between 5:30 and 6 o'clock, we reached Lenny's flat and took him up. We watched the 6 o'clock news, then me, and Teddy Smith left Frank there with Scotch Jack and Lenny. We drove back to the twins at Valence Road and told them what had happened. Then we each went home. We had been up since 6, and I was shattered after what had been a pretty tense operation, even for someone reasonably calm like myself. I was glad to have a night indoors. I woke to find we were being treated as heroes by other members of the firm. All I had done was babysit the guy on the drive back. But everyone was impressed because when the papers got hold of it, they blew it up as if there was a lunatic Axeman rushing around Dartmoor. And no one was safe in their beds. I think they had the Marines out for 3 days combing Dartmoor for him when he was far away in London, watching it all on the box. I remember a Giles cartoon with 3 or 4 Marines crossing a bridge over a stream, and there's this big hulk underneath looking up with his hands down to his ankles. Far from being offended, Frank was excited by the coverage. He thought that all this fuss was good for his cause. Now, I already knew from handling Big Frank that he wasn't as bad as the papers were painting him, but he was obviously nowhere near normal. In the next few days, we had to handle him very carefully. Here was a man who had been locked up nearly all his life, and he was totally institutionalized. He was simple, he was big, he was hugely strong, and he had been clinically diagnosed as a nutter and now we've ended up with him in a little flat, and he starts performing. You imagine, if all the psychiatrists and screws can't control this guy, what chance have the twins got? To start, we had to get on with writing the letters. That was down to the driver on the Dartmoor trip, Mad Teddy Smith. He thought he was a bit of a writer. He said plays of his had been broadcast on the radio, so he spent a lot of time with Frank, composing letters in Frank's name. In the one that appeared in the Times, Frank explained that he felt like a dog that had been given a bad name. He had escaped to draw attention to his unhappy plight and to win a release date. He wrote, "From the age of 9, I have not been completely free, always under some act or other. Sir, I ask you what is the fairness of this? I am not a murderer or a sex maniac, nor do I think I am a danger to the public. I think I have been more than punished for the wrongs I have done." This was how Frank was expressing himself to absolute strangers. But what was he saying to his dearest friends, Ronnie and Reggie? Well, nothing to Ronnie because Ronnie never came to see him. As for Reggie, I took him to Frank on the one occasion he bothered, or dared to visit him. It was partly to discuss the letters, and partly to discuss getting Frank a girl. He was obviously busting for one, and we thought a bit of female company would keep him occupied and calm him down. We brought Tommy Cowley in on this, because he often went to Winston's nightclub, and knew a lot of the hostesses there. He thought one girl in particular would be just right for Frank, so Reggie and me and Tommy all went up to Winston's to see her. She was Lisa Prescott, and she was very pretty. I remembered seeing her before when she worked at the Bagatelle. Then she was pretending to be Swedish, but she was really from up north. This night, she'd had a few drinks, but as the three of us sized her up and talked it over, we agreed with Tommy that she seemed a sensible girl, and she'd keep her mouth shut. Not that we told her anything except that we wanted her to take care of a good-looking friend of ours. She would have to look after him for a day or two, but she'd be paid well. Reggie and I agreed. I wasn't going to tell her exactly what was going on until I'd got her into Lenny's flat. Then I'd spring it on her. She must have thought she could trust us as she got in a cab with us. I dropped Reggie and Tommy off at Valence Road, and Lisa carried on to the flat with me. I knew that if she rebelled at any point after meeting Frank, or if she wanted to walk straight out, she would have to be detained. But I also knew that she'd have to know the full form on this guy once she'd met him. If she'd seen the TV, or read any newspapers in the previous few days, she was bound to have known about the lunatic they'd been calling the Mad Axeman. There was no point in pussyfooting about the guy's identity. I took her straight in the room, and I said, "This is the guy we want you to look after. Meet the Mad Axeman." Looking back, I feel this was the blind date of all time, and yet, crazy as it may seem, Lisa and Frank clicked immediately. It wasn't so strange. You could easily imagine Frank being attractive to women. He wasn't revolting to look at. He was a big, handsome man, and these two got on fine straight away. They had a little laugh together, and that was it. I went off and left them to their first night of what turned out to be 2 weeks of almost relentless passion. She stayed there throughout, except for one chaperoned trip to her flat to collect a change of clothes. She was taken straight back to Lenny's. Otherwise, she was not allowed out at all. Nor did we ever leave the pair of them alone, just in case the police ever did find out Frank was there. At least one of us had to be present to talk him into a quiet surrender. The odds against a police visit were immense, but we were more worried that he might take it into his head to walk out. And what if Lisa had an argument with him and just went home? Who'd shut her mouth then, and how? So we had to have permanent guards even if at times they must have seemed like screws to Frank. Billy Exley and Scotch Jack took turns staying overnight with Lenny Dunn, though none of them was capable of restraining Frank, least of all Billy, who was a frail fellow who had been off the scene and was only called back in for this particular job. I'd spend most days there, sorting out any problems and reading Frank's mood. This task took me back to when I worked in the Ville on those psychiatric rounds. I'd kept my observational skills in good shape all these years just watching the twins, but they came in especially handy now. First, it struck me that Big Frank was really a child. He'd been certified a couple of times, but he was more simple than insane. When I went to see him, he would say, "I want a suit like yours, Albert, with a shoulder holster." He was the type of guy who, if somebody bumped into him in a pub, even by accident, might go berserk and seriously hurt 3 or 4 people. He wasn't so very tall, maybe an inch taller than me, around 6'2", but he was fantastically strong. He was very broad and very thick with a barrel chest. He was very powerful, and all the more dangerous because he was simple. I also realized that he was in a sad state. Not sad in the sense of unhappy. Lisa was making him very happy. But sad meaning there was already no way out. The twins had hooked him out of Dartmoor without thinking what they would do with him a couple of stages further on. There was no way they could control him. As the authorities had found out years before, the man could not be controlled. He was like a lovable old pit bull terrier. He could turn on you in an instant. During our time in the flat, he went through all sorts of moods. Sometimes it would all be laughing and joking. He used to love to arm wrestle. Then suddenly, he'd just go on one. He'd look at you and just go. From then on, it was like trying to have a quarrel with a tree. Well, that's all for this time, guys. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please join our Facebook group. It's called Krays Crime Lords of London. We're a friendly moderated group with over 1,000 Kray and other celebrated gangster videos available for view. There's also thousands of images in the photos sections. The link for the group is in the YouTube description section. I hope we see you there soon.
Leave a like and subscribe.